everything's coming up greener.
Here's Harold Matthews. He is
The Garden Doctor. The Garden Doctor.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Garden Doctor Show. I'm sure you're used to my husband being on this side of the camera, as I'm usually the one taking the film. But he would like me to talk today about some of the successes and failures in our garden with, I guess I'm partially responsible for both, but I'd like to take credit for all the successes. First of all, let's turn to what is behind me here is my corn. Sweet corn, beautiful sweet corn. Now, when I first moved here to Indiana and we started a garden for the first time, which I thought was amazing, and my husband said he was going to plant sweet corn. And I looked around and I said, we live in the middle of a cornfield. Why on earth would we plant sweet corn? I thought that was the silliest thing I had ever heard until I learned the differences about your field corn and your sweet corn, which I'm glad now to be able to eat sweet corn. But take a look at this. Now, you have some ears that are still immature and many ears that have already been picked. And here you go. Here's a really nice one right here, fresh off the vine. And oftentimes when we want to have a snack, we'll just come out to the garden and quite easily shuck an ear of corn as it is and have a little snack. Now look at the beautiful, there's nothing sweeter than growing your own corn, putting it right in a pot of boiling water, or eating it raw. Very good, honey. Would you like a snack? Okay, he says yes. So there's your ear of sweet corn. Delicious. Now also, it was interesting to learn that sweet corn loses, I don't know how much percentage of your sugar properties within the first 15 or 20 minutes of being picked. So scientifically, that is the best time and sweetest time to eat your homegrown corn. Now, let's move over to some of our other successes right now. Here, let me hand this off to my husband because he's ready for a snack. And we'll move over here to these beans. Now, these were my first set of beans that I thought would not result in anything, and we kind of ignored them. Maybe that's the way I'm best at growing things, especially houseplants, is to ignore them. But I ignored these, and my husband showed me that, look, lo and behold, and look at the length of this bean. I have never seen such a thing, actually, as a city girl, I guess. But there is your bean, and I guess that's called a pole bean. I don't know if it's because it looks like a pole or because it grows up a pole. But either way, there's your pole beans. Now, here we have it's a success and a failure. I actually started these tomato plants from seeds. And I was very happy with myself, started them indoors in hopes of putting them out. And I did sell some. We have far too many tomatoes planted as it is. However, they were still in pots, and I don't want to throw them away. So we have to plant them, of course. Now, this is for you, Mark, at Tire Mart. You had asked me, is it too late to grow tomatoes at this point? If you've already started your tomatoes, had success or failure, but you would like more. No, it is not too late. Here are tomato plants I've put in the ground. They're already producing. And as long as when you buy a plant or get a plant, you make sure, because they're probably root bound, so you want to make sure and cut those roots down and once you take the pot off, slice those roots. That way they can grow, actually, and not be just root bound and die. But they will produce. You have plenty of time in this growing season to put out tomato plants and have a success. Now, if you will look at the way we've mulched these, this year with the rain, one of my successes, great successes, has been weed growth. I can grow weeds like nobody's business, I have found out. Now here, and we've used this in the past, we have put down black plastic. I don't know if you can see what's going on here. I have black plastic put down and then straw put on top of that. And then in next year, we can either plant in the same place, or if we decide to move the plastic, the straw can always be tilled into the soil. But here we go. They need to be staked up, that's for sure. But this will keep down your weeds. It will actually keep in moisture. I don't know what else it'll do. Probably a bunch of good stuff that I'm not thinking of right now. But yes, great idea. It looks nice, no weeds. Now, another success. We have grown the most beautiful sunflowers. If you'll pan up, take a look over here. I mean, every color. I didn't know sunflowers came in more than sunflower color. But you have red, you have pale yellow here. You have the big ones, the little ones. If you look at the size of the head on this thing, it's unbelievable, taller than me. And again, something a city girl never in a million years knew anything about. And I'm still learning, definitely still learning. Now, if you look over here, I would consider this a success. The weeds are abundant, but the beans are actually abundant as well. I have already picked beans a few times. And if you lift up the plant here, all you have to do is look, and there are beans here ready to be picked again in no time. So we've decided to just let the weeds have their way. They win, but we're still going to get beans, so we all win. Now, we will move over to another success here, which is our cucumber fence here. Now, I started these as well from seedlings earlier this year, planted them as small plants, and all you have to do is tuck your head in just about anywhere, and voila, a snack. Often we come out here, have corn, some little baby raw green beans, a cucumber. I should leave a salt shaker out here because that's how we eat lunch around here. Now, had somebody ask me one day if they saw in one of the clips that we had done for the show, if we actually had a bathtub in our backyard. The answer is yes, we do have a bathtub in our backyard. I love the old style bathtubs. We accumulated it somewhere and plan to use it probably one day when we get back into our other house. But yes, for the moment, I definitely have a bathtub in my garden and would love to sit and use it, actually, if I could fill it up with warm enough water. So now let's take a walk over here. We're going to take a little hike here. Cameraman in tow. And we're going to go over here and take a look at some of the things going on in this patch. This would be my pepper patch. Now, my husband's going to have to explain to me what's going on here because these beautiful plants, which were weeded and straw put down for mulch, doing a great job, have just started losing their leaves. I don't know if it's too much moisture, too much rain, not enough something, need to be treated with something. I'm really not sure, but I have some beautiful purple peppers that I have already picked. I've got an eggplant, 3 eggplants coming on back there, and they tend to be weak when it does come to insects. So I am having an issue with insects right now on my eggplants, but we hate to use chemicals if at all possible. With the little dog running around, and of course the concerns with what you are eating as far as, chemicals, and do they stay in food longer than the label says it does. So over here we have our beautiful surprise squash patch. I mixed all the seeds together, decided old seeds, new seeds. I'd had a bad experience with seeds, mix them all together. Ooh, there goes a bunny rabbit, Toby. Go get it. Go get him, rabbit. Anyhow, so I wasn't sure what would come up and what wouldn't. So I called it surprise, mixed them all together, planted my hills. And again, if you can see here, after he's done chasing rabbits over there, we did again the same method of the plastic underneath, the straw on top. And that's all the way up to the base of the squash plant. And surprise, see what I said? Surprise, squash patch. So here we go, and I just have acres, it seems like, of squash. My granddaughter was out with me collecting squash. She thought we would get a few. We're wearing rain ponchos in the pouring rain. Melissa said she would help me. So we come out here, and after filling 2 bags and only being down about 4 plants, she said, "Grandma, there's more, and another one. Oh my gosh, there's another one." I think she was tired of seeing squash that day. Now, if you pan over here, we started our garden earlier this year inside this former unused dog cage, and it's because we have a problem with gophers, as we talked about on the last show. So we started our kale, Swiss chard. Look at the beautiful leaves and stems on that inside the fence, and that did a fabulous job of keeping the gophers away from at least what's in the fence. I have tomatoes planted all the way around the fence, it's easy because you can have something to tie them up to. I have found that these tomato cages, as you can see here, all right, this one's in there pretty good, and I've got a couple of tomato plants tied to it. But once the tomato plant gets tall, it always outgrows the cage. They're never really that sturdy, in my opinion. And I just prefer this method because it is like a wall of tomatoes instead of trying to get into the middle of a circular cluster of tomatoes. So let's walk over to some of my failures. I've been bragging about successes. Follow me, husband. Now here's a failure. Big fail. So showed pictures of this on the last show where I had started these lovely markers for each row of seeds. My first bunch of seeds didn't turn out. I used old seeds. So I did it again, planted all these wonderful rows. They were producing famously, and then the gophers came, started eating it off. I had ribbons, I had tin cans, foil plates, everything imaginable to keep those critters away from this garden. But I have fattened up more gophers this year than I have eaten any of these vegetables that are here labeled. So they win. Oh, groundhogs, not gophers. That's a different animal? Okay, a different animal. Here to your left, this is 2 rows of cucumbers, can't you tell? Actually, we did use the plastic and straw method. All the weeds are coming from a 6-inch strip in which the cucumber plants are planted. Because I did not get the weeds out early, they are this tall now, and if I pull them, I risk pulling the plant. So I think I will just harvest out of this mess whenever I can, and we work with what we got. That's all we can do. So I don't know if that's a total failure, actually. I've gotten cucumbers out of that. So over here, oh wow, these must be volunteer tomatoes everywhere. Okay, not just weeds. We have volunteer tomatoes. On one side is a row of cucumbers again, because we start early. A couple weeks later, a couple weeks later. That way you always have a succession of cucumbers coming right at the same time, and not all, well, not at the same time. That's not what you want. Instead of them all being at the same time, they are staggered at different times so that you're not overwhelmed all at once. On the other side of this fence, also to the fence because it's so easy to climb and tie to, is a row of watermelons and cantaloupe, which I have no idea if there is either remaining in this entire strip. This part has been neglected too much. So that kind of gives you a little bit about our successes, our failures. I think the successes outweigh the failures, in my opinion, and the abundance of food on my table that we are blessed with, I'm very happy for and thankful for, and wanted to share that with the viewers at home. And want to say a big thank you to all of the people who came out for our yard sale. It's not just about plants. We enjoy seeing people. We enjoy visiting people. Thank you for the little mimosa tree someone brought me. And also the little sedum plant that I was given as a gift. That's the most fun, is trading plants, talking with people, seeing people, and giving us a reason to continue propagating plants like we love to do. So thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you next time on the Garden Doctor Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the other side of the garden doctor's backyard. That is considered the front yard. Why, I don't know. I don't know the difference. But that is a garden over there of fruit that produces, and this over here is a garden of flowers. And some of the things over here are edible, and some of the things over there end up not being. But we both want to try to take credit for the successes over there in our fruiting garden. But unfortunately, we have failures as well, and we both take responsibility for those as well. When she was talking about the plastic can do it can do one thing by keeping in the moisture. It definitely keeps the weeds out, keeping in the moisture to decrease evaporation, but it also keeps out excessive moisture. If you crown your plants and you slope the plastic so that the moisture is drawn away from it, it does both. It holds moisture underneath, slows evaporation, but it also directs the excessive moisture away from the plants. So it can work in both conditions of drought and conditions of excess moisture. On right here beside me are some of my wife's hardy hibiscus. These are hardy. I want to stress that. There are tropical hibiscus and there are hardy hibiscus. The tropical hibiscus, unfortunately, are often sold in the same exact location, mixed in even with the hardy hibiscus. And people assume that because they are there, that they are hardy, and that's why the good hardy hibiscus get a bad reputation. These have come through some severe winters. They've come through excessive droughts, excessive moisture. They've come through all sorts of conditions and still blossom. And these aren't the largest of the blooms. These are by far not the largest. There are some that are far larger than these. These are just samples from her yard. Now, if you're going to buy a hibiscus, make sure that you try to give it a sunny location. We have failed to do so, and they have not been as successful. Make sure that you give it a well-rounded situation, and if it's one that requires staking, then put it in a place where it can be staked. But many of the new varieties do not require staking at all. They're very successful, grow very well without any staking. Behind me and around me is my wife's butterfly garden. Now, there are times when she makes the mistake of asking me for something and says, oh, I'd like to have lighthouses. Well, she ends up with more lighthouses than she can box up and put in the garage. So when she said she wanted a butterfly garden, this is what we have come to at this point. Now, one of the most beautiful ones here, it's a very intense color, and it's called Miss Molly. It's one of the new dwarf butterfly bushes. Many of the old butterfly bushes had disease problems. The newer ones don't have near as many disease problems. The older ones blossomed, wasn't as vibrant as it is now, and there wasn't as much selection, and they weren't quite as hardy. The butterfly bushes that I have in here, I have about 11 colors, I think, 7, 8, 9 colors right here represented, and all different heights, and some of them bloom early, some bloom mid-season, some bloom late. And we will have 30 to 50 butterflies out here on a routine basis just about every morning, and they last mostly throughout the day. To get more butterflies, you want to have fruit. Not rotting fruit, even though the butterflies love rotting fruit, but the rotting fruit will attract possums and raccoons and skunks, even if you live in the city environment, believe me. You want to try to keep the fruit reasonably fresh. Split open a melon or whatever and cut a couple of sections off, and even the rind is successful for the butterflies. They also like water, so you want to keep some water out there for them, and the water should also be fresh. There is in the middle over here, there is a bird bath that we use for watering the butterflies, and above the bird bath there just happens to be a butterfly visiting, and there's a couple more there. We kind of scattered some out when we first set up shop out here, and we keep this table here where the hibiscus are usually covered with fresh fruit so that it can facilitate them for the rest of what they want. Now in the middle here is Corporal Stripes. It's a beautiful ground cover. tall ground cover. It's not a dwarf ground cover, but the reason that people come out to our plant sale a lot of times is just to see the plants that I grow, that I am partial to, because I have tested hundreds of plants, literally, and I have found that many of them are not worth the effort. That many of them, if you put them in certain places, they're extremely invasive. You put them in other places, they don't work hardly at all. One of our ground covers that I like, my wife is not real crazy about it, is the Goldilocks. It stays real small. It does a nice job of carpeting the ground. However, it does not grow profusely like many of the other ground covers does. It stays pretty limited. We have some of the bluest of all the blue in the blue plumbago. That is a fabulous plant, and we're going to try to walk around a little bit and look at a couple of these things. But when people come out here, they get to see the different types of... My dog is finally barking at a rabbit, I think. We had 2 or 3 of those around, but he found them of no interest. Hello, we had to be interrupted there momentarily. The dog decided that it wanted to bark at the neighbor, and we usually don't have any noise whatsoever coming from the neighbor. And the neighbor has very little coming from us, but every once in a while there is noise, and the dog wants to make a little noise. We thought it was a rabbit, but it wasn't. People come out to our plant sale to see what blooms early, what blooms mid-season, and what blooms late. We have a lot of the daylilies will start blooming in June. A few of them will start blooming in June, and then some will bloom the end of June, and some in July, and some will repeat a blossom throughout the year. Some, though, don't come into their full glory until August, and there are a few that repeat blossom in August that have bloomed early and mid-season. There's a difference between a continuous bloomer, which is really even they rest on occasion, and a intermittent bloomer, and a repeat bloomer. So, you have to look at the label very carefully to make sure you're getting what it is you want. There are some daylilies that will bloom in the shade, but most daylilies prefer the sun. We grow them in the shade, but most of the time not. You will notice that there are gladiolus planted in a number of places in my yard if you ever come out here to visit. And I do this in a number of landscapes that I've done over the years. I have experimented with gladiolus for years. I love the things, but I am too lazy and too busy in the fall to dig them up every fall and bring them into the house and store them and not have the mice eat them and not have them rot and so on and so on and so on. And all you really have to do in order to get gladiolus to come back, and I have proven this over and over again, is to simply plant them deeper. I go to about 24 inches into the ground. I put a good solid bed underneath them, a lot of bone meal. I use an extensive amount of bone meal in the whole area around them because I plan on these bulbs being there for quite some time. I fertilize them during the blooming season all the way through until the fall. I don't cut the foliage off until it wants to wilt down to re-energize the bulb for next year. You just get an unbelievable blossom out of a gladiola that you don't get from any other plant in that fashion whatsoever. Now, there's a lot of plants that we have here that are in bloom. We have some gorgeous yellow daylilies here. This is spiderwort, which is in its second blossom here. There's a lot of the old spiderwort that was real ratty and real rough looking. This actually down here, this bright blue that you see down here is plumbago. And plumbago likes to be out in the sun too, and it's in a little bit of a shade here, but I like that because it's a little slower to blossom. So really one of the bluest of the blue. Now over on this side we have another blue. I love blue. This is the balloon flower, and very underused, and you have to watch it because it can be mistaken for a weed. Believe me, it can be mistaken for a weed because my guys have done it many, many times. This over here on the other side, down a little bit further, I don't know if you zoomed in on those or not, my dear, but that is a false sunflower. It's a tall yellow blossom. Right down in here we have a flock, a garden flock. Now you'll notice that this flock is not covered with the diseases, even though it has all of this wet this year, and it's kind of growing in here in a shadowy location. It's not in full sun, but the new varieties are disease resistant and do a fantastic job. More glads over here to your left. On the other side, a little distance from where you're standing, is the some of the new varieties of coneflower. That's one in particular that I've raised here for about 5 years and love it. Been very successful with it. Back over here is another variety of coneflower, and we have yet another group of gladiolus back there. This coneflower here is Cheyenne Spirit, and there are some fantastic new coneflowers. Old coneflowers, everybody, oh, I got too many of them, they're aggravating, they're irritating. That was true for a period of time, but the new coneflower is unbelievably different. The same with the obedient plant. The old obedient plant used to be very disobedient, take over a whole area, would just fell over, they got too tall, they were too leggy, they had disease problems. The new ones have brighter colors, longer lasting blossoms, stronger foliage. Everything is much to the benefit of the new plants. And we have, right over here is a blue oats grass. That's quite interesting. I really love the blue grasses. Now I have some silver blue over there that I raise, but this particular one is a blue oats grass, and it got pulled by mistake. I want to thank Dina for that in particular. I told her this was a daylily bed and to weed all of the daylilies and leave nothing but daylilies. Well, she did, and consequently my blue oats grass got diminished quite a bit, but my fault, totally. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to particularly thank one of the Gabbards. Now, I can't remember what his name is, but we were broke down in town. And this happens, that's why we live in this small community. That's why we live here down at Hunter's Sales. Gullies, one of the gullies, yeah, from that works down at Hunter's Sales. Why we live in a small town is because the people are willing to help. Everybody knows everybody. When my fire first occurred here on the house, and we were without a home, the Everton Fire Department Auxiliary, the Ladies Auxiliary, and some churches in town, they all had fundraisers. The old boardwalk had a fundraiser. There was a number of places that raised funds and put a trailer here and paid some of my to have some of the wiring redone. The insurance was sadly very inadequate. And so we, without their generosity, we simply would not have had a place to live. And I also had 2 boys that were moving in with me real quick after I got out of the hospital. So, my wife and I moved into a 1-bedroom trailer that was temporarily hooked up to a temporary power line that had to be insulated with bales of straw. And but we survived. We made it through the winter. We made it because of the people of Connersville, and that's one of the reasons why we do this show. There is no monetary value here. I do not want any work, don't need any work, and I've turned down work. I try to help people for free. I lost some lists last year when I had a stroke, and I apologize for that. And if any of you are the ones that we did not get to, that I said that I would come visit you, please call, because I will more than happily, assuming that my mind is still capable, come out and assist you in any way I can. But I want to thank the gentleman down there at Hunter Sales. At 10 o'clock at night, he allows me to plug in his battery charger, charge up the battery on my truck so that I can make it home, because my alternator had just gone bad, and we were literally we had to move the truck because it was so full of tools. So again, thank you very much. Thank you for watching the Garden Doctor Show, and from Mr. and Mrs. Garden Doctor and our dog Toby, see you next time. Bye.
The garden doctor.